This PPT is made for the prose where mirrors are windows by A.K. Ramanujan. A.K. Ramanujan, poet and scholar of Indian literature who wrote both in English and Kannada. He was a poet, scholar and professor, and he was also awarded Sahitya Academy Award posthumously for his poetry collection. Prose, where mirrors are windows towards an anthology of reflection, which is its complete title. Ramanujan reveals the view of plural Indian tradition, that is, different types of Indian traditions, and also he supports the point Indian traditions are organized as pan-Indian Sanskritic great tradition in the singular and many local little tradition in the plural. Here he says two different words, great tradition and local little traditions. So he uses two words, singular and plural, to substantiate. So he says in India we have one great tradition at the top and other local different traditions are at the bottom level. So he says the great tradition as singular and little traditions as plural. For example, if you take the word book, it stands alone and it is singular, but if you add s, it becomes books and it becomes many. So he says we have one great tradition at the first point and it becomes many after that, following that and or after that. So he says that the great tradition is one and the little tradition, the other traditions we have in India are its forms. So in Indian tradition is inherently singular at the top and plural at the bottom. And also Sahitya Academy has a motto like Indian literature is one but written in many languages. For your easy understanding, I have given you the difference between great tradition and tradition in a tabular column. So first, great tradition. The great tradition consists of traditions contained in epics, Puranas and Brahmanas and other classical Sanskritic works. So great tradition is nothing but a tradition of classical work, a tradition from a Sanskritic world. Okay. So little tradition is nothing but a local tradition which is followed by local people, village people, a small community. But this little tradition has come up from his or derived from the great tradition, but with some alteration, with some different forms. So great tradition is followed by the elite people, the higher caste people, and the little tradition is followed by the folks or the unlettered peasantry like uneducated or illiterate people. The great tradition is found clearly among higher caste people, especially priests and ritual leaders of one kind or other. So great tradition is followed by the people who are in higher level or people who are in higher caste or like people who rank like priest or leaders. But when you take little tradition, the carriers, the followers of little traditions include folk artists, medicine, tellers of riddles. So, little tradition is followed by common ordinary people from a small community or a village. So, little and great traditions help to analyze social change in rural India. The nature of this change is basically culture, and when two tradition, that is great tradition and little tradition, interact, come together, definitely there will be a change in the society. Indian tradition, that every little tradition is the true representative of essential Indianness or the great Indian tradition. So he says that whether it is a little tradition or great tradition, they represent the essential Indianness through the tradition. Although in his reading of plurality of tradition and culture, Ramanujan negates or refuses the failing condition of the little traditions resulting out of colonial encounter and alien assimilation, but he accepts the conflicting nature of these traditions. So he says that he never accept or he refused the point where the little tradition are fading out because of the colonial encounter, like because of the invasion of British, But he says he accepts the point like this tradition always has the nature of conflicting with each other. In his prose, in the first part, he talks about the tradition, different traditions in India, great tradition and little tradition. And the last part of the prose, he talks about textual production. So, in case of textual production, depending on intertextuality, what do you mean by intertextuality? Intertextuality means a relationship between two different texts, two or more different texts, relationship between two different texts. So, the writer finds three different kinds of reflexivity. Reflexivity means self-reference. The word reflexivity mean self-examining or self-reference. So, or analyzing one's self. So here, a text is going to analyze itself. So the author has taken text A and text B to substantiate his point. So first, responsive, easy point, where text A responds to text B in ways that define both A and B. So when you read text A and B, even though they are interrelated or intertextual, that text A and text B can stand alone and define themselves. But in next point, reflexive, where text A reflects on text B. That is, when you read text B, you can see the reflection of text A in text B. So that reflection may be directly or indirectly. So third point, self-reflexive, where a text reflects on itself. So here, if you take text A, it reflects itself, or if you take text B, it reflects itself. There is no interrelation here. So in consequence of self-reflexive of a text, we get three more subpoints. So first we get core text, second one counter text, and third one meta text. Core text is nothing but a text is surrounded by a word. For example, when you write a word like cricket, then in order to explain the word cricket, you have to bring another word, like for example Sachin Tendulkar. So that cricket becomes the text and Sachin Tendulkar become the core. So together it becomes core text. Next one is counter text, where a text oppose or give an opposition to another text. And third one, meta text. Here a text criticize other text. Then within the realm of Indian textual productions, respective to written or oral modes of production, we can get this. This means that relationship between text A and B. This intricate means complex but open network of such relations. Okay, so he says that when you read Indian text together or one or two texts together, you just get some sort of complex thing that is called a network of relations. So one text is related to other. So through that he says like a tradition is also like text, which is interrelated. You cannot separate a tradition from another one. In all sorts of post-colonial writing in English, for example, Indian writing in English, where questions of identity always operates as vital one, important one, this system of reflexivity or the network of relations may occur as a shield to identity crisis and criticism of Indian nationalists and Western critics. So there is a saying that like in Indian writing in English, that is post-colonial writing, you have this major issue of identity crisis. So whenever you take apart this, so he says this network of relations, this network of interconnection between text and also between tradition becomes a shield to identity crisis, identity problem, and criticism, that is from the Western critics and Indian nationalists. So that this intricate, the complex nature of text becomes a shield for identity crisis. So through reflexivity and self-reflexive modes of writing, any text, poem or even genre respond to other respectively in such a way that any writing cannot be said as alien to other writings, even if that piece is written in an alien language. So He says, through this reflectivity or self-reflexive mode of writing, all text in a country becomes interrelated. So, no writing can be said as alien, a foreign thing to other writings, even if that piece is written in an alien language, even a work is written in a different language, alien languages, it can be related to other languages through this self-reflexive mode. Next, stereotypes, foreign views, and native self images on the part of some groups all tend to regard one part, that is very important, one part, for example, the Brahmanical text or folklore, as the original and the rest as variation. So, if you take these words, the Brahmanical text or folklore, the Brahmanical text come under great tradition and the folklore come under the little tradition. So, here he says that whether it is a Brahmanical text or a folklore, one is considered as original and rest as variation. So you have one at the top and other are its variations. So even if you take text or even if you take tradition, it is the same for both. So if you have one tradition, the other are its variation, and if you have one text and other are its interrelated text. Next comes to civilization. But the civilization, if it can be described at all, has to be described in terms of all these dynamic interrelations between different traditions, their text, ideology, social arrangement, and so forth. So, while he was talking about civilization, he says, if you want to describe a civilization, you should first describe the difference between different traditions, their text, ideology, social arrangement, and everything interrelated. You should describe that so that you can describe civilization indirectly. At last, he talks about reflexivities are crucial to the understanding of both order and diversity, the openness and the closure of this civilization. So he says that reflexivities, that is analyzing, self-examination, is crucial when you separate things, when you separate like openness and closure, when you separate things, it is very difficult to apply this concept of reflexivities. But when you bring things together, it is very easy to examine, easy to give an self-examination. So through this prose, he says that Indian traditions are interrelated, though we have many traditions, but traditions are all interrelated and form a single tradition at the top and other tradition at the bottom, but all together form a great Indian tradition. So, for that, he also takes an example from the concept of text, how texts are interrelated in writing. Thank you.